The Gospel of John has been it's a fantastic book, isn't it? It's marvelous. It's like opening up the doorway to heaven. It's just absolutely a wonderful book, and usually I don't care when I teach it or how often I teach the Gospel according to John. There's a lot of people who want to listen, want to learn about John. John 4:49. 4:49. Lege, pros, auton, ho basilikos, Kyrie, karabethi, prin, apothanein, to paidion mu. Now we have a brand new subject. We're going to talk about a basilikos. Basilikos. What's basilikos mean? Basilikos. Basilia means what? A kingdom or a palace. All right? So we have a royal person, someone that is of very high rank, a kingly person. We don't know who he was related to or anything, but he was a very important, of royal lineage, in extreme importance in this area. And he says to him, the kingly person, the royal person, Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie. And that's vocative singular masculine, isn't it? Kyrie comes from Kyrios. And what is Kyrie? Kyrie, Kyrie. By the way, this kind of settles. Okay? If you wrote it in English, it would be like this. All right? Kyrie. Kyrie. That's the way it would be in English. An epsilon, the Greek or the German pronunciation in the German Greek grammars is U, like a U, but that's not what it is. It's Y, like a kind of like an I, okay, or a Y. And he says to him, the kingly person, Lord, Kyrie. In the Septuagint, the name Jehovah is translated Kyrios. Okay? And sometimes, when you're looking in the New Testament, it can mean sir, hi, sir, master, royal, like your highness or whatever. And it can mean Lord, like God. Now, here we have a person of royal lineage, of high standing, and he addresses Jesus, Kyrie, Kyrie, Kyrie. What do you think he used? Which way do you think he was looking at Jesus? How do you think he was looking at him? As what? Lord and Master? Lord and Master? I think so. I think that I believe that this man knew who Jesus was. He was acquainted, and I believe he was a saved man. Okay? And he's addressing him with great respect, regardless. However, if he looked at him and called him Lord and Master, or even if he called him Sir, we have a king looking up to Jesus. Up to Jesus. Okay? Lord, you come down, second person singular, second aorist imperative active, you come down before to die the child of me. Now, what else do we find out in this verse? Come down before my child dies. What did this man, what did this king, or this royal person, prince, whatever he was, what did he think about Jesus?
He had faith that he could do something.
He had faith that he could do this. All right? Where did he live? Where did this king live, or prince? Where did he live? In Cana of Galilee. Where did Jesus do his first miracle? Huh? In Cana of Galilee. What was it? He turned water into wine there at a wedding, didn't he? And Jesus' life was crowds of how many thousands were following Jesus all the time? 5 to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 sometimes people. At least 5 to 10,000 people all the time. Okay? And we call this road, Galilee was the royal road, wasn't it, throughout the Middle East. It was a royal road. So people were hearing about Jesus all over. He couldn't have done this if he'd have gone to the L.A. airport. New York City, Kennedy, I think is what it is there now, in New York. If he'd have gone to one of these big places like this, New York City, whatever, it would be, his fame would just reach all over. And he went to the right place because it was reaching all the way from Europe through the Middle East, down into Africa and Egypt, everywhere. So he has fame already. He's famous. Famous. What does the word famous mean? All right, famous. What does fame mean? Fame.
Well known.
Well known. All right. Famous. O-U-S on the end of a word, what does that do? What does O-U-S mean on the end of a word? That's a suffix. It means abounding in. Abounding in fame. He was famous. Abounding in fame. All right. Abounding in fame. Little English etymology while we're at it. All right. He was abounding in fame, and he said, come down here before, prin. Prin means before. It's an adverb. It's an adverb of time. Before, to die. Apothanein. To die the child of me. To die the child of me. What is the word to die in Hebrew? Miot. Miot. All right? Miot means to life to fleet away. Before his life, before his spirit leaves. The child of me, the paidion. 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 It means a child in respect to age. It means a child of correcting age. A child that has learned to say mama and daddy. And a child that's learning how to read and write. Because he's going to the pedagogue. The word pedagogue comes from this word here. Okay. He is in training, and he's a boy, all right? A child of spanking age. Now, Jesus, in his ministry, loved little children, didn't he? He did. He just loved little children. Little children are sure impressionable, aren't they? They're sure impressionable. And go back to when you were a child, okay? Go back, some of you, it's easier to remember than others. When you were about 6 or 7 years old, how many of you remember when you were 6 or 7 years old? How many of you remember your first teacher? All right. Was that pretty special? Pretty not very special at all, Pam. I was scared to death when I went to school. I'd never been around kids before. I was around old people, wild, drunken Indians, matter of fact. It was quite a different first day I went to school. I got in a fight with 5 people. They jumped on me. I thought I was going to get killed. I hadn't been around things like this before. Fairfax School out there, we were in an old army barracks. And I was in the first grade. Didn't go to kindergarten. Didn't have any such thing. But it was a cultural shock to me. A little impressionable child. You remember things, don't you? Because they're very important. That's where your brain is live and just full of magnetism. Jesus told the disciples, if they wanted to be great, what? Become like a little child. Become like a little child. All right. Verse number 50. Lege, auto, hoesus, poruio, hoios, See? They epistiusen. Ho, anthropos, to, logo, hon, epain, auto, ho, esus, kai, eporu, eto. And he says to him, to Jesus, get moving. That's what he said, literally. Get moving. Go. Start walking. For yourself. All right? It is second person singular present, imperative, middle voice. Do this. I want you to do this of your own volition. But why did Jesus use the middle voice here? Why did he use the middle voice? It's something you do. Middle voice is your own volition, isn't it? Well, he knew that he believed. First of all, he knew that he believed because of what he asked for. He knew that this man was already a believer. This man is a prince. And he said, you go. He tells him, you go now. Look at that word, hohuios. Now we know what kind of child it was. It is the heir. It's his firstborn child. Hohuios, that's the heir. The son, or the heir of you, he presently lives. He's not going to die. Now, let's see what he did. Salvation is what kind of action? When you get saved, what kind of action is that? What? Punctiliar action. And this is first aorist, this knife blade action. All right, first aorist. And he believed. Third person singular, first aorist, indicative active. And he believed. And that word is pistio. See that word down and below that? That's what it comes from. That's the root. It comes from pistis. Pistis. By the way, while we're doing this, Old English had two S's. Do you know that? What year did they drop off the final S, or the N? What year did they change the S's in the English language? What year was it? This is what it used to look like. That's what it looked like. In English, this is a S and a final S. That's the way it was before 1800. Who said 1800? Was that Rebecca?
I said 1780.
Oh, okay. 1800. After 1800, it was spelled with two S's. They only had the final S. In Greek, you have the same thing. You have a sigma and you have a final sigma. Pistis. That's the sigma in the word. And that's the sigma at the end, what you call a final sigma. Okay? Is that confusing? We had an S and a final S in English. All right? You go, the son of you he lives. The son of you he lives. And he believed. The man he believed. Now look at this word, ho anthropos. Ho anthropos, that's nominative, singular, masculine. Ho, whenever you see ho, the omicron with a rough breather over it, that is a definite article. And that is a nominative, singular, masculine. That's what it tells you. Right there. So already you know what case this is in. And then anthropos, and here is the subject. The man, he believed. It says he believed the man, but actually in English it says the man he believed. What? In the word which he said to him, the Jesus. All right? He believed the statement. He believed him. Right instantly. He believed what Jesus said to him. And he kept on going. Now, let's look at the tenses in this kept on going. Let's look at the person. When you look at the tenses in Greek and even in Hebrew, you can tell what's going on there in their minds and everything else. Let's look at it. It's third person singular, so that's he, isn't it? All right? And in Greek, in the verbs, we have singular and we have plural. And we have first person singular, second person singular, third person singular. That's I, you, he, she, or an it, and then we have we, ye, and they. Now, actually, we do have a ye is very correct in English. You know, in old King James it says ye do this, ye do that. It wasn't correct that way. But ye is a second person plural word. It means the same as you all. Okay? Ye. So that's plural. And then they. And then the infinitive is to be down at the bottom. So it's third person singular. He went. All right? It comes from poruomai. Third person singular. It is imperfect. What's the imperfect tense that mean? What's imperfect tense mean? He kept on going someplace. He just kept on going. Kept on going. And then it's indicative mode, which is a statement of fact. And then it's middle voice. Again, middle voice. What is this telling us? What is John the writer telling us? That this man is a believer, that he's going and doing this from the very essence of his being. He believes. Okay? He believes. All right. Isn't that neat when you can look and you tell and you read a person from the verbs? A day. Day. Auto. Kata bonontos. Hoi. Duloi. Autu. He pain teison. Auto. Logontes. Hote. Ho pace. Autu. Ze. And already, all right, of him going down, the slaves of him. Now the slaves. This man is a prince, and guess what? He's a slave owner. He must have been in the South, you know. He's a slave owner. He owns slaves. This word doulos there, it means somebody that's been bought and paid for. Now really, all of us that are saved have been bought and paid for by Jesus Christ, haven't we? We're not our own. We're a slave to Him. Voluntary slaves, aren't we? Voluntary slave. Going down the slaves of Him, they met. Look at this, third person plural, first aorist indicative active. They met Him, dative singular masculine third person pronoun, saying. All right? That's the word saying right there. That is the participle. What kind of a part of speech is a participle? I want you to look at the how it's declined and conjugated down there. It's declined and conjugated both, by the way. You decline what? What do you decline? You decline nouns. And you conjugate what? Verbs. Okay? Here we have nominative singular masculine, present participle, active voice. So this is kind of a marriage between a verb and a noun, isn't it? It's like a gerund in English. Okay? Saying, they kept on saying that the boy, your child, your beloved child, of him he lives. All right? The child he lives. The child he lives. By the way, this is the only example of pice in John's writing. 452 now. 450. Yes.
Back in 51, saying the slave of him, and you've got him capitalized in the note.
Yeah, the slaves of
and
him.
And met him. But I was just wondering why him is capitalized. Is that just because?
I probably just wrote it down there like that.
I didn't know if I should read something into that. Because then later on it's not. And
The
so
slaves belonging to him. When you look at a prince, if you read the King James Version of the Bible, and you look at the preface, the epistolatory preface to it, you'll see them capitalizing him. Now this is a prince, isn't it? In any prince, supposedly his name is supposed to be written in capitals. Did you know that? You go back, and especially in this period of time, they were looked upon as appointed by God. So they were divinely appointed. So you would put them, and they speak of King James as this epistolatory record, letter that we have there, dedicatory dedication letter to the King James Version of the Bible, they castigate the Roman people, the Romish people, which are Catholics, and they castigate the Baptists. They denounce them both in that there, but they always speak of James as if he's God. As if he's God. Okay? Now, you can put that in there because he was royalty. He was a prince. So you can capitalize his name or you can put it in lowercase, either one. The slaves of him, they met him, saying that the boy of him, belonging to him, look at that word autou there. That's genitive, singular, masculine, third person pronoun. Genitive is a case of what? We've got nominative, genitive, oblative, locative, instrumental, dative, accusative, vocative. That's 8 cases in Greek for nouns. Okay? The genitive case is what? The case of possession. We are gods. We belong to him. Okay? We are gods. We belong to him. And this boy belonged to this prince. Okay? He belonged to this prince. And he lives. He has life now. Life was going away from him. This boy was burning up with fever. What kind of a disease can cause a high fever? A lot of diseases cause high fever. What? Viral fever. How about rheumatic fever? Maybe he had rheumatic fever. And rheumatic fever many times is deadly, isn't it? Yeah. Very deadly. I remember when Dakota had rheumatic fever. She was burning up with fever. You know, one of the best ways, this is an old Indian trick. You know, I keep telling you these old Indian tricks. How can you get your child's fever to go down? Huh? How do you do it?
I said Motrin.
You know how Indians did this? They would take their shirt off and they would hold the child to them. Because your temperature is normal, isn't it? And it will hold the child, and you turn the child around and just keep, and that will very gently cool the child's temperature down. And it'll do it. All right? Indians did that forever. Okay? Then you learned some brand new trick tonight, didn't you? They don't have that in medicine, probably. Put them in a cold ice. They put them in chilled water or whatever. That's a lot. Sometimes that throws them into shock. All right? But if you can keep their ambient temperature lower, all right? Remember we looked at the word biscuit last week. Biscuit. Biscuit. You have flapjacks or pancakes and biscuits. What's the difference between a biscuit and a flapjack? Huh? Kind of, sort of. The cooking of it. What's the difference between the cooking of a biscuit and a flapjack or a pancake? What? Biscuit is double cooked. Biscuit, biscuiter at bisque, and bisque twice and cook twice. But how do you cook something twice? At the same time. Now, how would you do that? Yeah, that's right, because the oven has ambient temperature on the top and the bottom. All right? It cooks it like this. All right? A flapjack you cook on a skillet or whatever, or a pancake. But this is a biscuit cooked twice. Learn a little bit of English and a little bit of everything, I hope. A little bit of cooking. And he kept on going for himself, this man. And then it says, already of him going down, the slaves of him, they met him, saying that your child, he lives. He lives. He's not dead. His spirit has not left him. Now, how did they, at this period of time, how did they know when the spirit left person? When the spirit left person. By the way, in Greek and in Hebrew, what does the word spirit mean? It means breath, wind. When the breath leaves a person, he's done. So they would take a polished piece of metal and they would put it in front of the child's mouth, and the child was breathing so shallowly that they thought that he was going to die. His breath was about to quit. When you quit breathing, it's goodbye. Okay? It's goodbye. Now, let's go on a little further, 452. Epitheto. Un, tain, horon, par, auton, en, he, ko, comps oteron. Eskin, apon, un, auto, hote, ekthes, horon, abdomain, aphaken, auton, ho, peritos. Therefore he inquired, look at this again, look at the verb. Let's look at it. Third person singular, second aorist, indicative, and what voice is it? Middle voice. He's doing this for himself. The man is feeling. You can see the feeling of this man in the Greek. And he inquired, and it's second aorist. What does that mean? It's punctiliar action, but what? It's punctiliar, but what? A little more durative. He inquired some. He inquired, therefore, the horon. I want you to look at this word. Our word, hour, comes right from this word in Greek. Okay? This is our word, hour. That's weird, isn't it? Does that look like the word hour? It doesn't look like that, does it? Now look at the word in Greek. Look at the word in Greek. All right? It starts with an H, doesn't it? We have an omega with a rough breather over it. Horon. Now, if you really pronounced hour in English, it would be what? Hor. Wouldn't it? So here we have the word, our word hour comes right out of Greek. That's the root of it. Okay? That's the root of our word. What hour? How long is an hour? How long? 60 minutes. All right, 60 minutes. They were 60 minutes back then, too. Did you know that? They had 60 minutes back then. And therefore he cried the hour from them in the better. In which better. All right? Comparative better. He had become. Eskin. He had become. He had begun to heal. And they said, therefore, to him, that yesterday, ekthes, yesterday, at our seventh, at the seventh hour, it left him the fire. The fire left him. The fire left him. A pyromaniac is what? What is a pyromaniac? Somebody that loves fire and starts fires. Okay? It comes right out of this word here. Pyretos. Pyretos. Okay? The fire left him. The fever left him at the seventh hour. Now, in Hebrew time, what would be the seventh hour? What would be the seventh hour of the day in Hebrew?
1 o'clock.
About 1 o'clock. In Roman time, what it would it be? 7 p.m. All right. So it was either 1. She has. Did it do that in your study Bible? Is it all down there? Oh, all right. In Hebrew time, if you look at it, is in Hebrew it would be 1 o'clock. In Roman time, it's 7 o'clock. Okay, 7 p.m. One of those times, it left him at that very hour. It left. Third person singular, first aorist, indicative, half active. Now, in here, in first aorist, what does it say? How long does it take a fever to leave somebody, normally? How long does it take you to get rid of a fever? Huh? How long?
A couple of days.
A couple of days. Now let's think about it.
Depends on what sickness you have.
Depends on what sickness you have. But is it durative linear action of fever breaking? basically. It means it takes time. Usually, how many of you have ever had a fever and woke up just soaking wet? What does that tell you? Your fever broke. Okay, that tells you your fever broke. And your body started cooling itself down with the sweat. You know, that's how the body breaks the fever. Well, this fever broke in extremely knife-blade punctiliar action. No second aorist, no durative linear at all. It was instant. Just like it chopped it off just like that. And what does that tell us? It was instant, and it was a miracle. It didn't happen naturally. Okay?
What word is that that would tell us that?
It's look at the word aphakin. Aphakin. See that word down there on the 1, 2, 3,
Some
the
of
4th.
my words are missing at the bottom.
Oh, they are. Aphakin. Okay, it's third person singular, first aorist, indicative active. The fever left him instantly. Okay, the fever left him instantly at the 7th hour, whether it was 1 or 7 o'clock. The fever left him. The fire left him instantly. All right.
The word for left?
The word for left, yeah, aphiame. Okay, it left him. Third person singular. And here it would be it, because the fever is an it, okay, in our minds. It left him. All right, 453 now, 453. Egno, un ho pater, hote, ekene, te hora, en, he, apen, auto, ho, asus, ho, huios, si, ze, kai, epistuusin, hoto, uto, autos, kai, he, okia, auton, holane. Well, we have a fantastic event here. Egno, that comes from gnosko. And this, our English word, comes right out of this Greek word. All right? Gnosko. Actually, it really isn't gnosko, it is nosko. All right? But so much English comes out of Greek. Matter of fact, the English language is absolutely a language in destitute poverty. Did you know that? It is. It's an impoverished language, because it has to borrow from everybody to where it can talk. I think that the English language was a language of you know, like that. I mean, there isn't much English. All right, very little English. Ugh, yeah, that's about it. The word. Look at this. Now, how would you say that if you really said it like it is? Kano. All right? And this is what? Gnosko. Or really, nosko. If you ask the modern Greeks, it'll say nosko. And we don't say kano. We say no, don't we? All right. Egno, here, third person singular, second aorist. He knew by experience. Therefore, the Father, that in that, ekaine. Did we read this in Greek? Mm-hmm. Did we? Okay. That, in that, the hour. Again, here we have a word gnosko, that English comes from, and then we have the word hora, which our word hour comes from. In which he said to him, the Jesus, the what? The heir of you, that's more than just the son, the heir of you, he lives. He lives. He's going to keep his spirit in them. He's going to keep his spirit in him. Now the word spirit, let's think about that word spirit. In Greek it is what? Pneuma. And in Greek it's in Hebrew? Ruach. Say ruach. Ruach. All right? Pneuma and ruach. Ruach is even better. Say ruach. Ruach. And you've got to say it with the back of your throat. Ruach. That takes a lot of breath, doesn't it? And in Lakota, in American Indian, the word for spirit is skan taku skan skan. That's a whole mouthful, isn't it? Say skan taku skan skan. Skan taku skan skan. All right. Now, that means that which makes things animated. Did you know that a tree is animated? What tells you a tree is animated? What gives it life? Huh?
I said Walt Disney.
Yes. Walt Disney did it. Yes. What tells you that a tree is alive? It has leaves on it. It has leaves on it. Okay. How many of you ever cut down a tree? All right. Have you ever cut down a tree and watched it bleed? Yeah, how many of you have ever seen a tree bleed? My boys aren't here, but I used to cut down a lot of oak trees. Have you ever heard of a water oak? A water oak. Okay, they have more water than the other oak. They're more porous. But I remember one time in the wintertime up in Glenville, I cut down this great big water oak, and they wanted to get rid of them because they sopped up a lot of water along the streams. And streams sometimes would just dry up, and I cut down all these water oaks around the streams, and the stream would start running again. I cut down this one water oak, and it was a giant tree. It was like 12 or 14 cords of wood in it, and a cord of wood is 4 feet high and basically 24 inches long and 16 feet by that way. That's a lot of wood. This tree had about 12, 15 cords of wood in it, so that's a big, giant tree. Okay? I cut this tree down, and the thing, I'll never forget that. I can remember this tree. You ever had anything cause you pain? I had cut this tree, and I had to notch the tree, and it was a large tree. And I was running about a 4 or 5 foot bar on my saw to cut the tree down. And I was running a great big Johnson red saw. And I cut slices out of it to make it fall, and then I cut one on the other side, and I drove one in. And that's slices out of it, like pie slices, you know. And I cut the thing down. It fell exactly where I wanted. And then I was sawing the tree, great big. And when I came through it, I hit one of those slices, and that slice, through my saw through that slice and separated my knee. Knocked it out of place, just like that, for a while. That hurt. But not only that, but that tree had a water faucet running out of it. That tree was bleeding. I mean, water was running out of that tree like you cannot believe. Just like you took a water faucet and turned it full blast. That's what was coming out of that tree, right out of the center of that tree. It was just water coming out like a stream out of the ground. It was bleeding. It was life. It was dying. The tree was dying. It was dying. Its life was gone. Now, the Indians say skan taku skan skan makes everything alive. That's the God, the Creator, that makes everything alive. It makes dogs and cats and chickens and birds and people and buffalo or whatever. All gives them life. That's what gives them breath and life. Did you know a tree breathes? Huh? Tell me what is the miracle that you can see that a tree breathes? What does the tree do? It's called transpiration, isn't it? What does that mean? That a tree, by the way, in the word in the Hebrew, a tree means what? To separate. A tree has roots and branches on both ends. Below its roots, above its branches. Down here it's getting all its nutrients and water and everything else and putting it up here. And it sucks up water here, and I mean a lot of water, and puts it in the air, and then you have clouds. And that's how you get water out of the ground and put it back in the sky. All right? Now, the word spirit. The tree, when you cut it down like that, it no longer lives, does it? It bleeds, it dies, and whatever. And it no longer has spirit in it. How many of you ever seen something die? A dog or cat or a person. They say that the light of the soul is where? In the eyes. When a person or an animal dies, its eyes become dead. And you can see that there's no more Zoe, there is no more life in it. No more life in it. No more life. The life is gone. This little child nearly had dead eyes. Skan taku skan skan, ruah, numa was almost gone. But now he lives. Now he lives. And he lives. The Son of you, he lives, and he believed him. He believed this. He trusted God. He believed God. I believe this man was a believer before he ever got there. Okay? Because it said very early that he believed that first when Jesus spoke a word and said, go away and go home. He's all right. He believed him. And what voice was it? Middle voice. All right? Because he believed, and the he oikia. He oikia. What is the oikia? Oikos. Oikia. His whole household. His whole household. There's another word in Greek for this, besides oikia, is patria. Patria. The whole family of this man believed. The whole entire family believed. We have a whole Christian family here. A whole Christian family believing. The whole family believes now. Everybody is old enough to believe anyway. 1454. Tuto. Day. Now day is in double brackets there, isn't it? Now what does that mean? That it probably was not there in the original language, okay? But we can throw it in there because it doesn't hurt anything. Paulin, Deutron, Samion, Epoiesin, Ho Jesus, Elthon, Ek, Tes, Udias, Ace, Tain, Galileon. All right. And this again, or moreover this again, that little weak adversity conjunctive particle, by the way, it's on page 85 if you want to write it down there. I didn't write it down in mine either. I better do it. Page 85, an analytical Greek lexicon. Again, a little adverb. The second, samion. What's the word? What's the samion? What is a sign? Signs and wonders, huh? It's a miracle. It's something that cannot be explained by any human science. And then he performed. That word poio. What English word comes from this word poio? Poio. What English word comes from this word, Brother Mike? Oh, you know, Sharon? Do you know what that one is? Yeah, who knows what the word comes from this word poio? Brandy? What does it sound like? Do you remember Rebecca? Huh? Who knows this one? Brandy, if Randall was here, he'd know this. It's poem. What does a poem do? You make words rhyme. And that's where we get a word poem. It means to make. You make words rhyme in a poem. All right? Epoiesin. And he performed, the second sign he performed to Jesus. Jesus. What does Jesus mean, by the way? Or Jesus. What should it be, Brother Stephen? Yahshua. Yahshua. What does Yahshua mean? Joshua. Yahshua. That Jehovah means who shall become. Yahshua means what?
Salvation.
Jehovah saves. Jehovah saves. All right. And the Jesus, having come. And here we have one of them marriages between a noun and a verb. Having come, That's nominative singular masculine, second aorist participle in active. Out of the Judea. All right, where was Judea? Where is Judea? Up around Jerusalem, isn't it? That's Judea. The land of Judah is what it means. The land of Judah. What does Yehuda mean? Yehuda or Judah? What does that mean? Praise Jehovah. That's what it means. Praise Jehovah. And the name Judas and Jude are the same word. All right? Out of the land of Judea into the Galileon. The Galilee. What does Galilee mean? Circle. Galilee was a big lake, and all around that lake were cities, and thousands of people lived around there. Now we get to 5 and verse 1. Chapter 5 and verse 1. John 5 and 1. Verse 1. Metatata. Ein. Orte. And that's with a rough breather. Horte. Ton. Judeon. Kai. Anabe. Jesus. Ace. Jerusalem. All right. Now, John doesn't tell us here what feast that he's going to go up to Jerusalem for. Some people maybe think the Passover, but really, John, in his writings, why did John write? Okay, why did John write this book? Why did he write it?
Fill in the gap.
What?
Fill in the gap.
To prove that Jesus is God in flesh. And when he did this, he looked at the other 3 Gospels and he saw the gaps. Some places where other people left very important things out, he put them in. But everything that he put in the Gospel of John does what? Prove that Jesus is God in flesh. That's what it does. It proves that Jesus is God in flesh. All right? And after these things, he kept on being the feast of the Jews, whatever it was. All right? And this is genitive singular, all right? Or the Jews there, actually it's genitive plural, it's a Jewish people, okay? The Jewish people. And he went up to Jesus unto Jerusalem. What does Jerusalem mean? Jerusalem. Jerusalem. What does that mean, Jerusalem? See, this is test night. What's Jerusalem mean? City of peace. City of peace. City of peace. That's kind of a misnomer, isn't it? I've been to Jerusalem. You know, there's places in Jerusalem you have to go 100 feet deep to see what the surface of the ground was in Jesus' time. You know why you have to go 100 feet deep? Because the city has been destroyed over and over again. The city of Jerusalem, they say, has been completely leveled 17 times. So is it a city of peace? There's only one way it's going to be a city of peace, and that's when the Lord gives it peace. You know what's going to bring peace in the Middle East? It's not what America can do. It's not what Russia can do or China can do or anybody else or Israel or whatever. It's going to be the Lord of heaven is going to bring peace to Israel and nothing else. All right? Now, John is supplementing all of the other writers and is writing things that he thought were very important that they left out. Okay? 5 and 2. 5 and verse 2. Esten, de, en, tois, Jerusalemois. Epi, te, probatikene. Kalimbe thra. He, epi logemene. E braisti. Bethesda. Pente, stoos, akusen. Let's go back and look at this. There's a lot in this verse. All right. Moreover, it is in the Jerusalems. That's plural. See that word Jerusalem? That's plural. It means the whole city of Jerusalem from every side. You're looking at every part of Jerusalem, okay? But in this great big city with all these sides to it and everything else, there's a special place that's called the Sheep Gate, the Probata, at the Sheep Gate, pertaining to sheep, little sheep, little sheep. What was the Sheep Gate? What was the sheep gate? All.
Take 'em in to be slaughtered?
This is where they took the sheep in to be slaughtered in the temple for sacrifices. Okay? And what would they do to the sheep before they took it in the temple to be slaughtered? What would they do? They'd wash them. All right? Now, every person that walked into the temple had to take a bath before they went in the temple. Did you know that? Has anybody here been in Jerusalem? You've been in Jerusalem. Did you get to go to the Mosque of Omar?
Yes.
You went to the Mosque of Omar. Okay. Outside of the Mosque of Omar, what is that out there? What's that thing there? There's a big thing outside of the Mosque of Omar. What? It's a bath.
Yeah, we didn't have to take our shoes off.
Yeah, you have to take your shoes off. Now every Muslim, when they go and they're going to go into the rock, what they call the Rock of Moriah, or the Dome of the Rock, they have to take their shoes off and they have to wash their feet and wash their hands and wash their faces. They do this, so they will be clean going there. It typifies something that they're spiritually clean. Now the Jews, before they would ever go into Jerusalem, they had to go into a mitzvah. What's that? A bath. And this is one of the baths. This is the big bath here. This is a great big bath. And every one of these, the Jews would go in there and they would dip themselves in this bath. They had to submerge themselves. They had to immerse themselves. By the way, there's only one form of baptism. It is not sprinkling. It is not pouring. It is dipping. Okay? There's only one baptism. Okay? And they would dip themselves in this pool. And this is a big pool. Okay? The word here, ka limbethra, that means a swimming hole. That means to swim. A bathing pool. All right? Now I would take the sheep in here, and they would dip the sheep and wash the sheep so the sheep would be clean. They would even shear the sheep. They'd get them all cleaned up. They would inspect the sheep. They would shear the sheep so they could see every part of the sheep. Why? It could not have a scar or a blemish on it at all. No blemishes on the sheep. Because why? It had to be perfect because it typified, they didn't realize this, but the sheep typified what? Jesus had to be perfect. He had to be a perfect man without sin to save us, to purchase us. All right? From our sins. They would take the sheep out there. He had already been sheared close. He was watched in the house whatever family was going to kill the sheep, the sheep lived with them, and they watched him make sure he wasn't sick. And they watched this sheep for a whole week, and then they would clean him all up, and they would clean him again when they got to the sheep gate, and they would march him in there to be killed. And it says Jesus marched or walked as a lamb is led to slaughter. Okay? The sheep doesn't know he's going to get killed. Do you think the sheep would be just walking right along there if he knew he's going to get his throat cut? No. In the places of Jerusalem upon the sheep gate, the pool, the swimming pool, the great big mitzvah, the one being called in Hebrew Bethesda, all right, the house of olives, all right, or the house of mercy. And it had five porches, or five covered places, like five shades. And they would come and they would gather in this area and they would listen to the Word of God preached. They would be giving people instruction as they dipped themselves, and as they dipped their sheep, they would be teaching them something from the Word of God. Okay? Now, by the way, this is Aramaic. In the Aramaic language, in Bethesda, which means the house of mercy.
So it's not Hebrew?
It's Aramaic. Aramaic and Hebrew are very close, but this is Aramaic. Aramaic, the language that the Hebrews spoke, the Aramaic language that the Hebrews spoke, okay? They spoke very little Hebrew, didn't they? at this time. Now, you talk to the synagogues today and all this kind of blowing, they'll tell you they're speaking Hebrew, but they weren't. They were speaking Aramaic. Why didn't they speak Hebrew? Why didn't they speak the Hebrew language? Why didn't they speak biblical Hebrew? Remember, Brother Roger? Historically.
Babylon,
What?
was Babylon a factor?
Babylon was a factor to some extent, but why didn't the Hebrews speak their Hebrew, biblical Hebrew language?
When the Greeks came, they took over. And
Gave
them the Greek.
Okay, they were speaking Greek, but why were they speaking Aramaic instead of Hebrew? Because biblical Hebrew at this period of time was considered a holy language, and they would not speak it. It was like the name of God. They would not speak the name of God. They referred to Him as Adonai or Hadabar. Okay, so the biblical Hebrew language, the Aramaic is kind of a slang Hebrew. Okay, and they spoke that language because they felt comfortable doing that. But to speak the biblical Hebrew, it scared them to do that. Now, the Apostle Paul spoke Hebrew in his home. He said he was a Hebrew of Hebrews. They actually spoke Hebrew in his home, which was rare. Okay? Rare. Now, there's 5 porches here. And we have a little history behind this. It says later on, they had added, and the man would sit there until the troubling of the waters. And this was a very holy place. This is a place where they would wash the lambs. This is the place where people prepared to walk into the presence of God, they believed, in the temple area. And angels would visit here, they thought. Now this is legends, all right? And the legends is that the angels would visit and they would come down. And these angels were cherubs. They weren't just plain angels, they were cherubs. And what does a cherub do? What does a cherub have that other angels, not all angels, have? What does a cherub have? Wings. All right? We know that Satan, Lucifer, or Hillel is his real name, he had wings. These angels or cherubs here over the Ark of the Covenant, they have wings. Okay? Now, storms, they believe, are caused by angels' cherubs' wings. Okay? And when the cherub or the angels had come down and about the light, they could see. They couldn't see the angels. They couldn't see the cherubs. But the wings of the cherub would stir up air, wind, and trouble the waters. And they thought, this is so holy that if I can jump into that water right now, that is so holy, and this is a miracle because the angel is visiting us, this cherub is visiting us, that if I can get in the water, that I'll be cured of whatever sickness or sin that I have in my life. So if they could jump in while the waters are still troubled, the first one they thought that got into that pool of water would be healed and forgiven.
So you
Right
said
there.
that was like a fairy tale? Or did it really...
This is a legend. A legend is not exactly fact. We just know that was the legend.
So
Okay.
why did they continue to do it? Because obviously they would see that the first person that got in...
They would wait for the waters to be troubled, or the wind would, any kind of wind that would come up, they say, an angel's been here, and they jump in the water. And if they didn't get healed, they said, well, somebody got in the water before I did. Somebody got healed, but I didn't. Okay. All right. How many of you heard of that before? You've heard that, Brandy.
But the man, Jesus healed someone, and he says, like, the man says, I can't get to the water in time.
That's right.
And I can't
That
remember what
first
story that is.
previews the coming contractions. It's right here, but it's just ahead. Just ahead. I laid the foundation tonight. All right. It's just ahead of us, just a little bit. All right. It's ahead just a little bit, but we're going to finish right here tonight. And we went from 4:45 to 5 and verse 2. All right. Do you have any questions about this? Any questions? No questions? Did you learn something? Brother Mike.
I have a question from something you referenced before. You said that Jesus turned over the temple because they were bankrupt.
They turned over the benches, and that was a figure of speech that they used. It was some action that they did in the pagan temples when they would break the benches of the pagan priests that had become unfaithful. He could not be trusted. He had committed embezzlement or something. They broke his bench, and they would publicly whip him, and because he had cheated people out of money. Every temple was a bank, and people could take and put money there, and they would get interest on it. And if the priest in the pagan temple that became unfaithful and was embezzling, they would break his bench, and that's where we get our English word bankrupt from, which means broken bench.
Now, Mike, thank you for that. But you said that they would get interest. How did that work?
They would take their money in and say, I'm going to put in $5, and I will get 5% interest per year. So you come back, and next year you'll have $5 plus 5% interest, okay, for your money. I can take out the interest, or I could take out all of it. But if the priest, every pagan temple was a bank, and they had a bench out there where they laid the money out, and they took money in, and they wrote down, and they had a scribe inscribe all this stuff, and you had so much money in the bank. And they got a certain amount of interest. I'm sure that they had different interests in different places, okay?
I thought that Jesus got mad at the money changers, and I thought the money changers were because people were coming from different parts of the world, so they had different kinds of money.
They had different kinds of money, and they had to buy money that was printed in one place or coined in one place.
Right.
And they were charging money. They were charging money, amount,
charging
surcharge
money.
to do that. They were making money on that. They were selling doves. They would say, "Oh, yours is not exactly right. Look at this little blemish on here. See there, you know." And they would sell them things, and it was a money-making deal. And he told them that they were bankrupt. The whole system was bankrupt. And who was responsible for that system there, where Jesus turned over the tables and broke their benches and whipped them? They would be publicly whipped. The unrighteous priest would be publicly scourged. Who was really responsible for all of this? The high priest. So Jesus is saying you need to be publicly priest, the high priest, because first of all, you did not accept your king and Messiah. And you've turned my house, my Father's house, into a den of thieves. It is a hideout, a cave, a den of thieves. It's like the hole-in-the-wall game. Okay? That's what they had become. A hole-in-the-wall, a bunch of outlaws, because they were outlaws. Outlaws.
Jesus
Anything?
was comparing the high priest's action to what the pagans were doing in
That's
their
right.
temple.
That's right. He showed them you're nothing but a bunch of dogs.
Was that the first time something like that has ever happened?
They didn't like that. But only Jesus would have the authority to do it and get out alive. He got out alive. They wanted to kill him from that point on. But what he had done is taken the reins of the kingdom away from them. He had taken the authority away from them. He said, you no longer had it. Who did he give the authority to at that time? He gave it to the church. But he actually had it himself. He was the king, wasn't he? And his church is his what? His princess, his bride. All right. All right. Pretty neat, huh? When you go back and you tie all this stuff together. All right. You get all of that? Brother Mike, you're the real thinker. Any other questions before I turn you loose on the world? Go out and do something eternal. Anything else? No? No? Rebecca, would you mind coming up here and leading us in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this time that you've set aside for us to learn more about you and to just dig deeper into your word. We ask for your guidance through the rest of the week so that we can do work to further your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
My son had to go to Kansas this week, so he had to get him all day.